Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and today we're finally going to be cutting my Ficus bonsai in half. So this is the Ficus bonsai that we're going to be cutting in half today, and if you're new to bonsai, you may be looking at this and thinking, what is that plastic bag that you've got wrapped around the tree? This on the tree is what's known as an air layering, and essentially it's a propagation method of getting a branch or piece of a trunk of a tree to root into a ball of moss so that you can eventually chop it off and create a new tree from another tree. And this particular air layering was done in a previous video earlier in the year. So it's probably about 3 weeks ago, and already, as you can see, this ball of moss has filled with roots. So if you would like to go and see how this air layering was done, I will leave a link to that video in the pinned comment of this video. And now before we go ahead and cut this tree in half, the tools that I will be using in this video today are a chopstick, some twig cutters, tweezers, branch cutters, root cutters, some gene pliers, and finally a bonsai saw. And of course, if this happened to be the first video that you've seen of bonsai, by no means do you need all of these specialized bonsai tools. If you're just getting started, you can get by with an ordinary pair of garden scissors. You don't need to use a bonsai saw. You could just as well use something like a hacksaw, although it is important to make sure that the tools that you do use, for example, if it's scissors, you want them to be clean and sharp. A good sign that it's time to chop the air layering off is if you can see lots and lots of roots around the bag, and this one actually grew so vigorously that they've actually started to grow out the bottom of the bag into the soil. It's trying to become a new tree that way. You can actually see here, there's one of the roots. That is pretty crazy. Usually when cutting off air layerings, you want to keep the bag of moss intact before cutting it. However, with this one, because the roots are growing out of the bag, if I were to try and cut under here, I would cut through some of these nice roots. So for that reason, I'm going to open the bag just by undoing these little wires. So now I'm just going to carefully open the bag, and you really don't want to damage any of these nice roots that the tree has grown, because these roots is what the top part of the tree is now going to use to survive once we cut it off. If you wish to, you can use a chopstick and just gently rake away some of the old sphagnum here. And I'm being very careful not to damage these nice roots that the tree has made. You can use a chopstick, or I'm going to switch over to these bonsai tweezers just to help me pick out all the pieces of sphagnum. And the reason why I'm removing this sphagnum is simply to help me see more of what's going on under here, so I can cut the tree further up. Got all this sphagnum up here too. This is coming away pretty easily, so maybe I can work my way from the top down. Just take your time with this, you're in no rush. I would say also just keep a spray bottle of water nearby to mist everything, just so that these little roots don't dry out. Because if these roots do dry out, there's a good chance this tree could die. So you just want to mist it with some water. And also I have found with air layerings, by misting it with water, it does help loosen up the sphagnum a good bit. So it does make the job a little easier for you. And in terms of the speed of growth with this air layering, I have noticed it grow pretty quickly. Within only 1 week of doing the air layering, I noticed some roots growing in the bag. And I think this is probably down to the IBA rooting powder that I used on this tree, but also Ficus itself as a species, even without doing any air layering, it likes to send out aerial roots in humid environments. So if you're new to air layering and doing this process of propagation, I would advise starting with a ficus to practice on, just so you get your technique down, and then you can move on to things like maples and junipers. But it is definitely a beginner friendly tree for air layering. So I've removed most of the sphagnum. As you can see, it's all here. I haven't removed all of it because I want to keep some of it attached to the roots to keep them hydrated as I work on it. But now it's time to cut the tree in half. Here with these roots, as you can see, I've tried to pull them out of the way so that I can saw through here. But unfortunately, these roots are just a little bit brittle because they are newly growing. They're not as flexible as I would have liked. So perhaps to avoid this issue, you can leave the bag on the root ball for a little bit longer. But this tree has plenty of roots the whole way around, even up here, that this will still be safe to cut off. So here we go with a saw. Let's cut this tree in half. did it. We cut the tree in half, and there was only one little root here that got damaged. If you wish to, with this stump that is left over, you can keep this and hope that it grows some leaves from it. But personally, I don't like this part of the Ficus ginseng. I'm probably going to dispose of it and recycle the soil. There's still some of the ginseng left that I'd like to cut off bit by bit. So I'm just going to take the root cutters and just chomp away at this bit by bit. Ficus are quite soft, so it doesn't take much effort to do this. It's probably of the same consistency and softness as a potato. And just as I work around any roots that's like this, I'm just lifting them up off the tree. So here, when I lift this up, that lets me get in with the root cutters, cut this piece off without damaging the roots. Even here, there's some I could lift up. I'm going to switch from these to some concave branch cutters, and these just help me take more of a bite out of the tissue of the tree. So as you can see, the further down I get here, the more it's beginning to look like a natural root flare of a bonsai tree. I just need to keep going a little bit more just to get right under the air layering. This part can be a little bit time consuming, but I think it's more important to do it right, even if it takes you quite a long time, than rushing it and making a mistake somewhere. The way in which I'm cutting this off here to ensure the roots don't get damaged is when I take the concave branch cutters, I'm sliding the concave branch cutter under the roots like this. See how the roots are on top of the blade? So when I cut, I know I'm not taking any roots along with it. And now to me, that is looking pretty good. That's as far up as I can take this. And now the pot that I have decided to put this air layering into is this. This is just a cheap rectangular ceramic bonsai training pot. I think this would look pretty good in here. Because this tree is going to be kept indoors, I want it to look somewhat nice as I look at it every day. And I think this pot is more than big enough to get this tree healthy in. From this point, after an air layering, your first priority should be get the tree healthy. I think eventually I want to work this tree down into a pot this size. I think this would look really good. But right now, I just want to encourage lots more root subdivisions, and of course, more root density. So when it does go into this small little pot, it has lots to feed the foliage on top. Here I am just taking some mesh tape. I'm just going to cut a little strip of this, and this will act as a drainage mesh for along the bottom of the pot. Some of you guys were asking, does it stick? And even here, when this is a little bit wet, it 100% sticks. And because this bonsai pot only has one hole, I'm going to have to secure the wire in a little bit of a different way so that we can wire the tree into the pot. So here I'm just taking some 1.5mm aluminium bonsai wire. I'm just going to cut a little length like this. Then I'm just measuring the wire. So you want a little bit sticking up here. You want it to go down along the bottom of the pot and then up this side. I'm going to cut that here. And now I'm going to use this wire as an anchor so that when we put it through here, this wire holds this one in place. So as you can see here, as I pull this down, that wire holds it in place. Then we can flip it over, and this will just hold itself in place when we pull it out to the sides of the pot like this. So as you can see, that is held nicely. The soil mix that I'll be using to plant the ficus into today is a mix of pumice, akadama, lava rock, and zeolite. And you want to make sure that before you use soil, just give it a little sieve like this, and this removes any fine particles that may be in the soil. And by removing the fine particles like this, they won't affect the nice drainage in the soil. So I'm just making a little mountain here in the middle. And this just ensures that when I sit the tree down on top of it, there isn't an air gap underneath the tree. You also want to think about the position in the pot. Where is the front of the tree? I quite like how the tree splits, so perhaps I will have that as the front of the bonsai. I think by having it like this doesn't show off all the best features of the tree. So for that reason, this will be my front. And then taking that wire that we fed up through the bottom of the pot, I'm going to bring it across the tree. And I'm actually, on this occasion, going to put it through this little split on the trunk as an anchor, because we don't have much of a root ball to anchor to with this one. And coming with the other piece of wire, then we can just go ahead and give that a twist. We can go ahead and tighten this off. This will just help secure the tree in place. You don't want it too tight, but tight enough just to hold the tree there. And then from here we can go ahead and top up the rest with more bonsai soil. And just as I go here, this tree's getting a little bit difficult to manage. So before I fully work in all of these roots and air gaps out of the soil with a chopstick, I'm just going to give the top a little prune. This is a side branch, so I can prune this right back to maybe the first few sets of leaves. Just to see more of what's going on, let me just strip off some of these leaves. These trees can handle some defoliation like this, so it's completely fine to do this. This one is not an apex, so I'm going to cut that back also. This will help create movement and taper in this bonsai. So as we prune this here now, from the point that we cut, it will subdivide into 2 branches or bifurcate. They will grow long, we'll come back next year, prune them, let it grow again, prune it, let it grow again. And eventually you'll get this nice intricate branch structure with lots of movement. And the growth on the tree will also be nice and dense. It will never grow out of control. This one here also, I'm gonna cut. I don't think that's the apex of the tree, that's more of a side branch. This one on top here is what I'm going to keep as the apex, so I'm not going to prune the top of this branch because this is where all the auxins are. And if I prune this, the branch will then begin to send out side shoots and put energy into that area, where if I leave the active shoot on the top of this tree, this will just want to keep growing tall. Even though as it is, I quite like the thickness of the trunk. Perhaps I don't want to grow a thicker leader. I could always change my mind right now, or even later I could change my mind because this tree will always grow another leader. Here I'm just gonna cut this here. Oh, that looks so much better already. I'm pretty happy with even the branch structure that it has as a starting point to build ramification on. And on that, I'm going to end off this video right here. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like on this video. It really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments below, or even have you done this yourself to a ficus ginseng? If you would like to support me and the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. And if you'd like to stay updated on all the things that I do off camera, please follow me on Instagram. It's @NotionBonsai, and you can see all the things that I do on there. But on that, thank you so very much for watching.